Have you ever been to Jamaica? Maybe Pakistan, Kenya, South Sudan? Well, I wouldn't blame you if you haven't. Most of these countries are one of the most dangerous places to visit on Earth. But let me tell you about a man who has not only been to these dangerous countries, but has even held interviews with the most infamous gangs in these places, visited black markets, and so much more. Meet Christopher Hughes, more commonly known as Christmas List. Chris, as far as we know, has been to more than 15 countries, probably even more since he has apparently been traveling for over 10 years. But before we dive into this controversial, dangerous, not so average traveler, let's talk about Chris before he was a Christmas List. Chris was no stranger to YouTube. Since 2015, he has been uploading videos on another channel called A Nerd's World as the owner and founder of a Toronto-based web agency of the same name. His videos offer tricks, tips, and high-impact methods to viewers looking to promote their small business websites and web agencies. I actually had purchased a consultation with Chris back in 2022 for my own website agency. We discussed a lot about the improvements I can make on my own website and agency in order to grow the business. Despite him being almost 20 minutes late to the meeting, Chris actually gave me some pretty good advice, but best of all, he gave me the push to continue with my business, which honestly was much needed at that time. Funnily enough, he even mentioned that he was on vacation at the moment in Jamaica or something. And then once I figured out he had that Christmas List channel, I was actually wondering what was he actually doing in Jamaica at that time during my meeting. It makes you wonder what motivation some people have to go to some of these countries, meet people, make connections, experience their culture, and live through the good and the bad in that place. What also makes you really think is travel is pretty expensive, but that's okay for Chris since he owns a web agency. Well, it's not really how it looks like. Some things about Chris are a bit shady and questionable at best. Turns out that the first few countries he went to were funded by his employees' hard-earned money. Chris is also known for abandoning jobs, breaking promises, failing to pay his employees, and getting into trouble with authorities. He does that quite a lot. Jamaica wasn't the first country he visited though. I'm not entirely sure if it was his first visit since he has been traveling for more than a decade but uploads his vlogs for only 3 years. One of his first videos is a Greenland vlog. Really calm, relaxing, walking around, seeing the beauty of the nature there, until things started shifting when he posted his first Japan vlog in January 17th, 2021. This vlog was a whole complete different vibe from what he had started on, and it kept getting more and more interesting.
Sort of shrine. Here's a different color string.
But then Chris stepped it up and went to the most dangerous place on Earth, Toronto. On a serious note, he did actually visit Toronto. After just skimming through the video, it was pretty, Toronto vibe-ish. Shout out Drake, shout out the child molest, leap that part. One of the more chaotic places he visited was Brazil. This is de Janeiro. I don't know if I said that right.
De Janeiro.
This is Rio de Janeiro, the most interesting and fun sides of Brazil. Even though Brazil is an amazing country, every country has a sinister side.
Without giving too much information, I was stopped and politely asked not to film certain things. Put it that way.
Speaking of which, here comes Haiti, very interesting place located in South America. Other than arson, mud cookies, and riots, Haiti has something that makes it really stand out.
So talk to me, where are we?
Now we are in the Voodoo Market in Kitchenville.
So you would give this to somebody
Yeah. That
to make them go crazy?
Yeah.
What is it?
This is a zombie powder.
Okay.
You wanna try it?
No, I'm not.
You wanna smell it?
No, I'm good.
Oh yeah, you're gonna.
I'd like to see for sure. You just gotta watch the light.
I don't smell it.
Okay.
Do you smell it?
No, I'm keeping my nose closed.
It's coming. It's coming.
My nose is closed.
It's coming.
Well, you're all smelling it, so. Oh, hey, not today.
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
This is a mixture of different kind of stuff that they put in it. There is also woods, leaves, and the bones of the dead person, the corpse of a dead person, and the intestine and everything. It's inside of this one. And this is what they use to raise the zombie from death.
At this point, Chris starts to develop a style and vibe in his content. He's noticing that, the crazier videos are getting the most views, and with YouTube, when you start getting more views on certain content, you start making more of that content, right? So you can really feel him trying to peel off the stigma around dangerous countries, talking to people, sharing the culture, seeing them as human in an unfortunate place, rather than just another country run by a corrupt and or shit government. And what other place to visit to test the limit of that other than?
The sun is about to set. We're really pushing our time. Wish us luck. Let's find some guns.
Yes, Afghanistan. Famous for its gun markets, Toyota trucks, and much more bizarre stuff.
And people buy these guns for home defense and for guarding some offices and, for bodyguards. And also they're used for hunting.
How old is this?
It dates back to 60, 70 years ago, and this is Russian made. This is made in
USSR,
yeah.
Soviet Union. And how much is this?
This one is sold for 80,000 Afghanis.
Wow. Now this is...
He wants us to take a look at the barrel and see how clean and how intact it is. He says that the cheapest piece I have is this Pakistan-made shotgun.
Yes.
And it is sold for only 1,500 Afghanis.
After his visit to the infamous Afghanistan, he goes to travel across many more countries in Africa, Asia, and even some states in the US, and finally arrived to his last destination, the most recent infamous Trinidad. The island of Trinidad and Tobago are actually quite resource rich. The economy is diversified, based to a large extent on oil and natural gas. It is one of the leading gas-based export centers in the world, being one of the top 5 exporters of liquefied natural gas. Well, that sounds fantastic. Trinidad has the resources to be a developing country, but there is something I still didn't mention. While Chris was vlogging down in Trinidad, unbeknown to Chris, there is an active gang war in Trinidad. That might sound a little bit dangerous, but funnily enough, the gangs were not really what got Chris in trouble. The Trinidad Police had been cracking down on gang violence with vigilantism and extrajudicial killings. Imagine being the police and you have some tourists go to these gangs, film their location, talk to them, even with their face on camera, and when you want to work with them, he refuses. They did not hold back. The Canadian embassy heard about all this stuff and demanded Chris to book the first flight. Chris agreed. The next day, had cops knocking on his door.
What happened is I went to the Canadian embassy to ask them for a recommendation as to what I should do because the phone keeps ringing. And they said, just continue on as you are. If you have not committed a crime, there's nothing for you to be worried about. Now, they must have been tracking my phone, the police, because by the time I left the embassy, there was already undercover police waiting for me outside. At that point, they approached me and they said, we need to talk to you at the, I don't know what you want to call it, headquarters. I said, if I'm not being arrested, then I'm not going to go. I said, any questions that you have, you can ask me here. With the line of work I do, being associated with police in any manner could be deadly. You can understand why. I've already been accused of being a police officer, not only in Trinidad, but I mean all over the world, which is just simply ridiculous. I'm a journalist. I document what I see in many countries. So no, I'm not CIA. No, I'm not FBI. No, I'm not any type of law enforcement. And I have no history of law enforcement as well.
Chris, aka Christmasless, was charged under the Sedition Act, liable upon conviction to a 25-year prison sentence, all for not wanting to work with the police. While Chris's personal details were kept quiet by the Canadian government during the initial investigation, he later revealed all in an interview with the Toronto Star, saying, "The investigator had told me that if I'm found guilty on any level, or if they find out I'm working with the American government, that I'll spend the rest of my life in jail." Luckily for him, he was released without charge and said he even planned to return to Cuba one day since the authorities told him he was welcome back. If you're wondering why he is not allowed in Cuba, he was detained for 2 weeks in Cuba for illegally flying a drone, which got him some recognition on YouTube and other social media.
Roughly 4 years ago, I found myself in Havana, the center of Havana, with a friend that I met, a Cuban friend that I met, and we were looking up and we saw two beautiful big buildings with big faces on it, and I broke out my drone. So I thought, let me get a good aerial shot of these buildings so I could take home and show my friends and family. As I began to fly the drone, I was big smiles, and a military officer walked over to me and
that's my worst fear.
Started shouting at the drone, right? First and foremost, yes, I'm flying a drone. Yes, drones were relatively new at that time, and the majority of people didn't even know what a drone was. So he was yelling and screaming at me in Spanish. I brought the drone down. More military started to surround me, and it's at that point like my life started flashing before me, right? The friend that I was with, that was Cuban, they immediately broke us apart. We went 2 separate police cars to what you would only presume to be like a movie set type jail / police office, like no lighting, broken windows. I could hear him in the next room getting yelled at. I was getting yelled at. And the basics of this whole thing is like we were being pointed at as being American spies. So what went from like let's just have a friendly drone aerial shot in the park to were you aware that Fidel Castro was in the building that you happened to be filming?
Oh, it was all circumstantial.
Yeah, and how did you know that he was going to be there, and who are you working for? So that was the beginning of a nightmare, basically a nightmare.
While it must have been a scary experience, it obviously didn't affect Chris too much as he continued to travel to more extreme and exotic destinations. He did offer some advice to others planning to visit foreign countries though. If you're under your mother's roof, you play by your mother's rules. Not that he himself would follow this advice, as will soon become apparent. In 2022, the Canadian vlogger was deported from Somalia for seemingly throwing money at poor people. That's kind of funny. This was viewed by the locals as extremely disrespectful both to the people and their currency, but Chris says that the story was twisted by the media who were trying to start a race war. The following year, Chris told another Toronto publication that his mission was to see all 197 countries and experience 197 different cultures. He described his audience as a very loyal and diverse, one from all over the world, and said, "It's great seeing so many different people coming together and enjoying what I do best. Steal money, travel. It's great seeing so many different people coming together and enjoying what I do best. Travel on my employees' expenses." He was still uploading to A Nerd's World at this time, with his most recent video dated September 2023, but by now the web design business had taken a back seat. In fact, the website for A Nerd's World was recently taken down, and it's unclear if or when it will return.
Alright, so on a side note, there has been a lot of changes happening to Chris's YouTube channel and his other channel, A Nerd's World. Recently, he has been privating a lot of videos containing information about his income, possessions, family, and friends, and some videos not even related to Trinidad are being privated. Also, his A Nerd's World channel is completely nuked with no trace of any content other than the community posts. An example of privating videos on his Christmasless channel is his 2022 recap, something along those lines. He mentioned that he is a self-made millionaire and also showed some cars that he owns, BMW and Lamborghini. Not sure about the specifics though. Since the video is in public, there's no proof of any of this. We only have the URL to the video and Chris's conflicting statements. In defense of Chris, however, all of this might be temporary since it might be his lawyer's advice, since his videos might be used against him in the Trinidad case. Also, the case is much bigger than it seems, since Trinidad is a part of Interpol that contains 100+ countries. So if he's no longer allowed in Trinidad, that's a permanent no entry mark on his head to all of the countries in X. There's also a lot of news that happened during the editing process, so if there's any corrections or new statements, they will be included in the pinned comment down below.
The writing of this video, it was taken down. I don't know if it's back up. I think it's kind of buggy. Plus, in the same interview as earlier, Chris stated that while the money was never his motivation for doing YouTube, the ads on his videos were starting to pay well, and he could see himself making YouTube his full-time passion over the next year. Over the next 5 years, he planned to grow his subscriber count to over 1 million, and we all know the easiest way to do that. Simply experiencing every hellhole on earth, Chris began seeking out criminal gangs and interviewing them on his channel. It's great content, don't get me wrong, but it's also a surefire way to piss off the biggest gang of any country. You see, Chris takes pride in uploading his videos on the same day he films them, so if any authority catches wind of his content, it's pretty easy to track him down. This is exactly what happened on the 30th of May 2024 during a trip to Trinidad and Tobago. For anyone who might be thinking of visiting these Caribbean islands, the island nation with a population of around 1.5 million currently has the 6th highest crime rate in the world. Yeah, I know. In 2022, there were 614 violent deaths, and 2024 is already on track to smash that record. Corruption, the drug trade, gun crime, and violence are all on the rise, while kidnapping is as a national crisis. These crimes are not exactly points of pride that the Trinidad government wants to be splashed around on YouTube. And while I agree that the people deserve to know the truth, freedom of the press and all that, you wouldn't catch me going there for a vacation or even interviewing the local gangs. He interviewed several people, including a popular entertainer, a well-known senior police officer, and some school children. Those weren't the clips that caught the local authorities' attention though. It was when he started talking to the men with assault rifles and handguns, showing him their toys and saying things like, "For real, we don't play out here, boy." Videos allegedly showed members of the resistance gang, 4 of whom were killed during a shootout with police during their investigation into the kidnapping of a doubles vendor. What's a doubles vendor? Not that it's important, but it's a person who sells doubles, a Caribbean food consisting of curry chickpeas served on 2 fried flatbreads. Sounds pretty nice. Anyways, wait, he got killed for that? What the? Anyways, the videos kicked off an investigation and caused police to raid the place where Chris was staying. His cameras and laptop were seized and the YouTuber was arrested. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service said in a statement that the videos featured individuals professing to be gang members, advocating criminal activities, and using threatening language. For this, Chris was charged with sedition. I'll save you a click because I didn't have a clue what sedition means either. It's a conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. It's basically an old dumbass law that was introduced by the British, of course, to stop people rising up against the people in charge. And like most places, Trinidad and Tobago is a former British colony. They haven't got rid of the law because they can use it in cases like this to stop people from shining a light on the truth, which embarrasses the government. It's kind of ironic though, because unlike his previous arrests, thanks to Chris Musli's growing popularity, he had 326,000 subscribers at the time, the news was picked up by fellow YouTubers including Philip DeFranco and spread by huge media corporations like the BBC. If convicted of sedition, Chris was facing a potential fine of 3,000 Trinidad and Tobago dollars, around 450 US, or 2 years in prison. If he appealed to have his case heard by the High Court and convicted, the potential fine would have risen to 25,000 Trinidad and Tobago dollars, around 3,700 US, and up to 5 years in prison. Chris' passport was taken from him, so he couldn't escape the country, and his bail was set at $100,000, close to 15,000 USD.
But I noticed that my charges had changed. I got fingerprinted, and I was hit with a sedition charge. So all the other charges of like working without a permit removed, any gang related charges removed. And it's the first time in my life I heard sedition. I didn't even know what it was. People say, they say, "Chris, why do you return to Trinidad? Nothing can happen." And I'm going to answer your question very, very precisely. First of all, I'm Canadian. And if you haven't noticed, I'm a world traveler. Okay, I travel the world for a living. This is what I do. Interpol, I don't know the exact number, but over 100 countries are a part of Interpol. If I had a sedition charge, I would no longer allowed to travel, period. A lot of countries, as soon as I come to immigration, it would show up with an alert saying that this person is not welcome in the country. Simple answer. I can't have that on my record and continue to be a worldwide YouTuber.
His lawyer told the press that Chris was simply exercising his constitutionally protected right to freedom of expression and freedom of the press, and like any North American, he threatened to sue the state of Trinidad and Tobago for breaching Chris's constitutional rights. Whether it was due to this threat or the growing global press coverage, the Trinidad authorities eventually backed down, at least a little bit, and more than 3 weeks after his arrest, Chris got his passport back and was allowed to leave the country. In an Instagram post from Florida on his way to Canada, an emotional Chris thanked everyone for their love and support and praised his attorney for getting his travel restrictions removed. He also said that freedom is a must and that he will continue to fight to clear his name. Why does he need to clear his name? Because despite allowing him to return home, the Trinidad and Tobago authorities have not dropped the case. Chris will have to go back to the country on August 23rd for the next appearance. How will it go? Your guess is as good as mine, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna vlog it. So my opinion of Chris, honestly, I don't know. He seems kind of cool. He seems like he's legit. The only thing is that I honestly didn't know any of this stuff after researching about him not paying his employees and doing some shady stuff with his web agency, because that's how I found him in the first place. I knew Chris when he was a website agency owner before I found out he had a travel channel. So I was kind of caught off guard by that, by like all these shady, employee reviews on him and the company. So that kind of makes me question, some of his personality and values and morals on this other channel and on the statements that he's been giving out. But I hope he's true. I hope he's real, and we'll see August 23rd. Anyways, I'd be interested to know your thoughts, so feel free to drop a comment down below. Lastly, if you'd like to see more of this type of content, feel free to subscribe. With that being said, goodbye and have a wonderful rest of your day.